It's 3:11 a.m. You know it's 3:11 because you haven't even opened your eyes yet, and you already know. The sheets feel too warm. There's a pressure behind your sternum that wasn't there before. Your pulse is knocking, not fast but hard, like a fist tapping on a locked door from the inside. And then the worst part. Your brain boots up. Full power, instant. And now you're doing math on how many hours you have left before the alarm. You've already tried to fix this. You bought the magnesium glycinate after someone on TikTok swore by it at 1:30 in the morning. You stopped looking at your phone in bed. You tried melatonin, 5 milligrams, then 10, and you still woke up right on schedule. You even ordered one of those cooling mattress pads. Nothing. You fall asleep fine. It's the staying asleep part that's broken. And that's exactly the problem. Every sleep tip you've been given, every video, every article, every supplement recommendation was designed to help you fall asleep. But falling asleep was never your issue. Staying asleep is a completely different system inside your body, and almost nobody is talking about the difference. In the next 11 minutes, I'm going to walk you through the exact biological chain reaction that wakes you up in the middle of the night, with the published research to back it up, and the specific protocols that target sleep maintenance, not sleep onset. But fair warning, there's no magic supplement in this video. This is mechanism-level biology. If you want a quick hack, this isn't your video. Still here? Good. Welcome to Yellowhead Science, where we turn complex lifestyle health research into simple steps you can start using today. Before we go deeper, hit that subscribe button, because what you're about to learn about your own body at 3 a.m. is something most sleep content never covers. And if you want more research-backed health content without the fluff, subscribe and turn on notifications. Let's start with the thing almost every sleep video on the internet gets wrong. They treat falling asleep and staying asleep as if they're the same process. They're not even close. Falling asleep is driven primarily by two signals, melatonin and adenosine. Adenosine is a chemical that accumulates in your brain the longer you've been awake. It creates that heavy, drowsy feeling by the end of the day. Pair that with the melatonin your pineal gland releases when it gets dark, and those two signals together push you over the edge into sleep. But here's what most people don't realize. Neither of those systems is responsible for keeping you asleep. Staying asleep depends on your brain's ability to hold its own wake signals below a threshold for 7 to 8 straight hours. And after about age 40, that ability begins to erode. This isn't a lifestyle failure. This is a hardware update you didn't ask for. A major meta-analysis published in the journal Sleep, led by Dr. Maurice Ohayon at Stanford, covering 65 studies and more than 3,500 participants, established that after age 30, you lose roughly 2% of your deep sleep per decade. Meanwhile, the total time you spend awake during the night increases by about 10 minutes every decade between 30 and 60. Imagine your deep sleep as the insulation in a wall. At 25, that wall is thick. Sounds, temperature shifts, minor hormonal fluctuations bounce right off. Every decade, a layer of insulation gets stripped away. By 50, the wall is still there. But now, things that never would have reached you are getting through. And there's a specific reason for this. Your brain has a network of neurons that produce a chemical called orexin. Orexin is your brain's power-on switch. It's the system that fires when you need to wake up. Recent research from the Annual Review of Pharmacology and Toxicology shows that as you age, those orexin neurons drift closer to their activation point. The switch that used to require a firm push now goes off with a tap. That's not a sleep hygiene problem. That's a biological shift. Now here's where most content on this topic makes a critical error. You've probably heard that cortisol wakes you up at 3 a.m., and cortisol is absolutely involved. But it's not the cause. It's the consequence. Cortisol is the fire alarm. Something else is starting the fire. Here's the actual timeline. Your cortisol levels follow a predictable 24-hour rhythm. They bottom out in late evening. That's part of why you feel ready for sleep. Then, beginning around 2 to 3 a.m., cortisol starts a gradual, steady climb, reaching its peak about 30 to 45 minutes after your usual wake time. This pattern, called the cortisol awakening response, has been measured in approximately 75% of healthy adults. A 2025 study from the Ultradian trial, that's 201 healthy volunteers across 4 countries, measured with real-time microdialysis, produced a finding that reframes the entire conversation. The rate at which cortisol was rising did not change at the exact moment participants woke up. The rise was smooth and continuous. Waking happened when the level crossed a line the sleeping brain could no longer ignore. And remember, after 40, that line is lower. So the cortisol rise didn't get worse, your tolerance for it shrank. This completely changes the question. Instead of asking, how do I stop cortisol? The real question becomes, what's pushing that rise higher or earlier than normal? Let me walk you through the triggers that research actually supports. And I want to be upfront. Not every trigger applies to every person. But if you've been struggling with this for months, at least one of these is likely in the mix. Trigger 1. Blood sugar instability. When your blood glucose drops below a critical threshold during sleep, your brain treats it as an emergency. Your hypothalamus, the brain's crisis dispatcher, sends an urgent signal to your adrenal glands. The adrenals respond by flooding your bloodstream with cortisol, adrenaline, and norepinephrine. Your body goes from resting to high alert in seconds. That's the jolt, the racing heart, the sudden wakefulness, the sense that something is wrong even though you can't name what. A study from the University of Lübeck, published in PLOS Medicine, confirmed this mechanism directly. Researchers carefully lowered blood glucose in sleeping participants and found that 10 out of 16 healthy, non-diabetic adults woke up when levels dropped below the threshold. The hormonal counter-response was immediate. Now here's where I have to be straight with you. There's a lot of content online that frames blood sugar as the singular cause of every 3 a.m. wake-up. That's an overstatement. Continuous glucose monitoring studies, including a multi-center study published in the Journal of Clinical Endocrinology and Metabolism, show that most healthy adults maintain overnight glucose between 70 and 120 milligrams per deciliter without dipping into danger zones. But there are common situations where it does become relevant. Skipping dinner entirely, eating a high-sugar, low-protein evening meal, the kind that spikes fast and crashes hard, or consuming alcohol, which directly blocks your liver's ability to produce new glucose while you sleep. The protocol here is straightforward. A small snack 30 to 60 minutes before bed, something that pairs protein with healthy fat, a tablespoon of almond butter, a small handful of walnuts with a few slices of cheese, half an avocado with a pinch of salt. You're not eating a full meal. You're giving your system a slow-burning fuel source so your glucose doesn't crater at 3 a.m. It's a tool, not a miracle. Trigger 2. Conditioned arousal. This is the one nobody sees coming. If you've been waking at the same time for weeks or months, your brain may have accidentally taught itself to do it. It's called conditioned arousal. The wake-up created frustration. The frustration created hypervigilance. And the hypervigilance created a pattern your brain now runs automatically. Like a smoke detector that keeps going off because it remembers the last fire. The most effective intervention comes from cognitive behavioral therapy for insomnia, CBTI, which the American Academy of Sleep Medicine recommends ahead of medication. The specific technique is called stimulus control. If you've been awake for more than 15 to 20 minutes, get out of bed, move to a dimly lit room, read a physical book, sit quietly, return to bed only when genuine drowsiness returns. Every instinct will tell you to stay in bed and force it. Don't. Lying in bed awake teaches your brain that the bed is a place for frustration. Getting up resets the signal. Over 2 to 4 weeks, the conditioned pattern weakens and your brain stops expecting to be awake at that hour. A few more triggers worth checking. If you're having even one alcoholic drink within 4 to 5 hours of bed, your liver's glucose production gets suppressed and the byproduct acetaldehyde finishes clearing right around 2 to 3 a.m., which can amplify the cortisol surge. If that timeline matches yours, you may have your answer. Chronic, low-grade inflammation and unresolved daytime stress both elevate your cortisol baseline, meaning the natural overnight rise starts higher and crosses your wake threshold earlier. A consistent exercise habit, roughly 150 minutes of moderate cardio per week, is one of the most well-documented tools for reducing both. And for women approaching or in perimenopause, progesterone, which is one of the body's key sleep maintenance hormones, declines significantly during this transition. Nighttime awakenings are one of the most common symptoms, and it's a conversation worth having with your doctor. I want to take a moment to explain why broken sleep at 3 a.m. isn't just an inconvenience. It has downstream consequences most people don't know about. In 2013, Dr. Macon Nettergaard's team at the University of Rochester discovered that during deep sleep, the spaces between your brain cells expand by approximately 60%. This allows cerebrospinal fluid to rush through the brain tissue and flush out metabolic waste, including beta amyloid, the protein associated with Alzheimer's disease. They called it the glymphatic system. Think of it as your brain's overnight sanitation crew. A 2024 study published in the journal Cell identified that rhythmic pulses of norepinephrine during deep sleep phases act as the pump that powers this cleaning process. And when sleep was fragmented, when the deep phases kept getting interrupted, the cleaning slowed dramatically. Every time you lie awake for 40 minutes at 3 a.m., that sanitation crew has to put down their equipment and wait. This isn't just about tomorrow's energy level. This is about protecting your brain for the next 3 decades. So let's pull it all together. After 40, your brain's wake threshold drops. You're not sleeping worse because of bad habits. Your deep sleep insulation thinned out and your brain's wake switch became more sensitive. The cortisol rise at 3 a.m. is natural, but upstream triggers, blood sugar drops, conditioned arousal, alcohol metabolism, chronic inflammation, can push it past your new, lower threshold too early. You're stabilizing blood sugar with a small protein and fat snack before bed. You're breaking the conditioned wake pattern by getting out of bed after 20 minutes and returning only when drowsy. You're keeping at least 4 to 5 hours between your last drink and sleep. You're lowering baseline inflammation with consistent weekly exercise. And if none of this moves the needle, you're seeing your doctor to rule out sleep apnea, hormonal shifts, or other underlying conditions. In the first week, you may notice the wake-ups feel less intense, less racing heart, less jolt. By week 2 to 3, the conditioned pattern starts to loosen. By week 4 to 6, your brain begins to stop expecting to be awake at that hour. By week 8 to 12, sustained deep sleep periods should improve measurably. The key is consistency. 0 cost, 5 minutes of adjustment before bed, backed by peer-reviewed research from Stanford, the University of Rochester, the University of Lübeck, and the American Academy of Sleep Medicine. That's the formula. If this was helpful, subscribe for more. Drop a comment below, I read every single one. And tell me which of these upstream triggers you think has been behind your 3 a.m. wake-ups. And if this video on waking up at 3 a.m. helped you in any way, share it with someone you love who is also dealing with those frustrating middle-of-the-night wake-ups that never seem to go away. Stay tuned as we continue breaking down lifestyle science into videos you can actually use.